The stars screamed the day he fell. A rupture opened between two dying realities, and through that wound in space drifted a single armored figure. His green ceramite cracked, his visor dim with the reflection of distant suns that no longer knew his name. He had been a soldier of another age, a weapon shaped by a civilization long buried in the dust of its own perfection. The war he came from was brutal, yes, but it still believed in reason and order, in the illusion of control. Here there was none. Here, every breath was war. When he awoke on the black sands of an unnamed imperial world, his HUD struggled to read the atmosphere. Corrupted data, unfamiliar radiation signatures, an entire galaxy thrumming with a psychic pulse so violent it made his mind ache. He saw machines that bled oil like blood. He saw the silhouettes of men in armor that dwarfed his own, carved with gold and scripture, moving like living statues. And in that instant, the Master Chief realized something his world had never prepared him for, that even gods could die. And in this place, they already had. This was not the battlefield of humanity's birth. This was its graveyard. Before we go any further, I need to be honest with you. Sometimes, I look into this endless void, and I see that 99% of you wander these stories but never swear your allegiance. If you stand with me among these tales of war, faith, and fire, then subscribe. It means more than you know. It helps these chronicles of the Imperium reach others who still remember what humanity once was. And tell me, from which world, hive, or system do you watch? I always read your messages. It reminds me that even across the stars, the spirit of mankind still listens. The first thing he felt was the silence, not peace, but the kind that follows annihilation. Then came the impact. His drop pod, if it could still be called that, had long since become molten slag by the time it carved through the cloud layer. The descent alarm screamed for a full 30 seconds before the shockwave tore them from existence. Atmosphere scorched across his armor. Superheated ions danced across fractured plating. His HUD flickered between warning glyphs, none of them recognizable. He tried to reset the feed, but the interface refused translation. This wasn't UNSC code. It wasn't anything he knew. The ground met him like a fist from a god. Rock shattered, sand vaporized, the sound swallowed by the thunder that followed him down. His armor held him barely. When he finally moved, the air stung with the smell of burning metal and ash. His shields were gone, his systems limping. The diagnostics readouts were fragments of corrupted data. Energy core, unknown, environment, toxic. Human biosigns, many, and beneath it all, a strange pulsing echo that shouldn't exist. He forced himself to stand. The landscape was a graveyard. Black dunes rose like waves frozen in time. Ruined hab blocks jutted from the sand, twisted by fire and age. The sky was a sheet of bruised iron, thick with clouds that glowed from distant bombardments. Far off, something roared. Not the mechanical shriek of a Covenant engine, not even the guttural thunder of flood biomass. This was different. This was animal, ancient. Chief steadied his breathing and scanned the horizon. Through the smoke, shapes moved, silhouettes of men carrying banners that burned with twin-headed eagles. The figures were smaller than Spartans, but armored nonetheless, their forms wrapped in fabric, steel, and devotion. Last fire hissed in the distance, a rhythm of disciplined panic. He recognized tactics, formations, command signals, but their speech came through on frequencies his armor could not decode. Every transmission sounded like chanting. He took one step forward, and the sand beneath him groaned. His boots sank into a mix of dust and bone. He knelt, fingers brushing a skull, human but malformed. The cranium branded with sigils, not tattoos, brands. He turned it over, reading the faint indentation of something familiar yet alien. Imperium of Man, the inscription read in High Gothic. The word man was still there. Somehow, impossibly, he was among his own species. But this was no Earth he recognized. The comms crackled, a ghostly signal clawing through static. Incoming, heretic. Emperor preserved. The channel collapsed in a burst of distortion. He raised his rifle. No active ammo counter, no kinetic calibration. He would have to fight with what remained. The next explosion came from the ridge ahead. He ran toward it, instincts overriding reason, muscles remembering decades of war. The ridge gave way to a battlefield littered with torn banners and scorched earth. Human soldiers, if they were human, fought a tide of monstrous figures clad in crude metal plates and reeking of oil and blood. Orcs. The word surfaced from the comms fragment he'd captured earlier, cross-referenced by his suit's corrupted lexicon. A species of violent xenos, primitive, brutal, everywhere. He waded into the fight. Bolts of light carved the air, melting armor and flesh alike. A guardsman screamed as a cleaver the size of a chainsaw split him in half. Chief's rifle spat tungsten and fire. The first orc's skull erupted in a green mist. The second stumbled as plasma burst through its chest. The soldiers froze, watching the armored giant move with the precision of a machine and the wrath of something divine. One of them dropped to his knees and muttered a prayer. Another shouted over the din, "By the throne, and Astartes! He fights for the Emperor!" Chief ignored the words. He didn't know their Emperor. He fought because fighting was what remained of him. When the last orc fell, silence returned, heavy and trembling. The soldiers surrounded him, weapons lowered but eyes full of awe and terror. Their leader, a thin man with augmetic eyes and a chest plate marked with the Aquila, stepped forward. "My lord," he said, voice shaking, "we believed you lost. From which chapter do you hail?" Chief tilted his head. The translator embedded in his helmet tried to match the dialect. After a few seconds, it managed something coherent. "I'm not part of your chapter," he said, his voice filtered through layers of static. He paused. What was he now, Spartan? That meant nothing here. "Just a soldier." The man's face twitched with confusion, then fear. "Blasphemy," someone whispered behind him. "He denies the Emperor's grace." Chief felt the weight of their stares, the fanatic edge in their silence. This was not the disciplined military he'd known. This was religion shaped into war. And yet he saw the exhaustion beneath it. Men too tired to question, too loyal to survive without faith. The officer gestured toward the smoke-choked horizon. "Come, warrior. We have a command post nearby. The orcs will return with nightfall. You can rest, and we will contact the priests of the Mechanicus. They will know how to tend your wounds." He followed, though something in him resisted. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong. Not tactically, but cosmically. The air itself felt haunted by purpose. Even the wind seemed to carry whispers. "You should not be here." As they descended into the valley, a single star flickered above the storm clouds, a faint, golden pulse, rhythmic and steady. His visor magnified it automatically, focusing, analyzing, failing to categorize. It was not a sun, not a beacon. It was something burning at the center of the galaxy, radiating through the warp like a heartbeat. And for the first time since leaving his own universe, the Master Chief felt small. The command post was a ruin stitched together from scavenged walls and faith. Sandbags bled promethium. Tattered banners clung to fractured ferrocrete, each one marked by the double-headed eagle of the Imperium. The air reeked of burned oil, blood, and incense, a trinity of survival that defined this world. Chief moved through it like a ghost among pilgrims. Wherever he walked, soldiers fell silent, eyes wide, as though he carried the Emperor's gaze behind that golden visor. He didn't speak. The language still hurt to understand, a guttural mix of prayer and code. The camp's Vox towers hummed with transmissions that never reached orbit. A broken litany of distress signals looping endlessly, unanswered. He'd seen desperation before, but this was different. These people didn't expect rescue. They expected martyrdom. A Medici approached, trembling. "Lord Astartes, your armor bleeds sparks. May I anoint its machine spirit before it falls silent?" The question came with such reverence that refusal felt cruel. Chief nodded. The man dabbed a wand of incense across the Mjolnir's cracked plating, whispering words to a god of engines. Sparks flickered, the faint scent of ozone mixing with burned incense. His systems didn't improve, but the Medici smiled, convinced the ritual had meaning. Chief didn't correct him. He sat near the command fire watching the men. Their uniforms were threadbare, laze guns patched with scrap and prayer ribbons. Between shifts, they knelt and recited oaths to a distant throne. One soldier, no older than 20, noticed him watching. "We fight for Terra," the youth said, as if explaining to a child. "For the Emperor. For all mankind." Chief studied him. "You think he sees you?" The boy blinked, uncertain. "Of course. He sees all. Even in death, his light guides us. Then why are you losing?" The words cut the air like a blade. The camp fell silent, conversations dying in their throats. The commissar turned, his augmetic eye glowing. "Mind your tongue, stranger. To question his will is heresy." Chief didn't flinch. "Where I come from, gods don't win wars. Soldiers do. The commissar's jaw tightened, but before he could reply, the ground shook. A distant thunder rolled through the canyon, the unmistakable rhythm of orc engines. The sentries shouted. Alarms flared. The horizon bloomed with fire. Chief rose, rifle in hand. Positions. The guardsmen hesitated, torn between fear and awe. Then training overcame faith, and they ran to the barricades. The air filled with the static hum of last fire, the screech of crude orc rovers, the pounding of heavy boots. Chief took the front line, planting himself between the soldiers and the oncoming horde. His visor caught every movement, the glint of cleavers, the flicker of rocket trails, the shapes charging through smoke. He moved like a storm. Each pull of the trigger was deliberate, efficient. His rifle roared, empty shells clattering at his feet. When the rifle overheated, he drew a scavenged chainsword, its teeth shrieking as it met orc flesh. Blood sprayed in thick green arcs. The guardsmen rallied behind him, emboldened by something they didn't understand. "Hold the line," he shouted, though they could barely hear him over the chaos. "You can die later. Fight now." For hours the battle raged. The camp turned into a furnace, men screaming prayers as they burned, engines wailing, explosions carving craters into faith and flesh alike. By dawn, the sand was slick with oil and blood. The orcs retreated, leaving piles of their dead to smolder in the sun. When the last echoes faded, Chief stood alone among the ruins. His armor smoked, gouged by blades and plasma fire. Around him, survivors crawled through the wreckage, dragging the wounded, whispering blessings. One soldier looked up at him and murmured, "He is proof the Emperor still walks among us." Chief turned away. Proof, he thought, was a fragile thing. In his world, proof had been data, evidence, logic. Here it was survival mistaken for divinity. He limped toward the ridgeline, his systems flickering, each step heavier than the last. He couldn't shake the sound of their prayers, rhythmic, desperate, sincere. They prayed to survive, prayed to die well, prayed to be seen. Maybe that was what faith really was, not belief, but the refusal to be forgotten. He looked back once. The camp burned quietly in the distance, its smoke rising toward a dim sun. His visor caught the faint reflection of that golden pulse on the horizon again. The same light he'd seen before, beating like a living heart, and for the first time, the soldier who had outlived his own universe whispered something he'd never said before. A prayer, not to a god, but to the hope that there was still something left to fight for. The convoy moved at dusk, engines coughing through the ash winds as the remnants of the regiment escorted him toward the nearest city. If it could be called that. The horizon grew jagged with chimneys and black spires, their silhouettes twisting like broken bones against the dying sun. Even from kilometers away, the air changed. It thickened with static, with the hum of buried machines dreaming in rust and steam. Chief had seen industrial worlds before, but this was different. This was worship disguised as labor. When they reached the outskirts, the soldiers fell silent. Great statues loomed over the gates. Men fused to engines, their faces half machine, half martyred expression. Skitari patrols passed by, their footfalls perfectly synchronized, optics glowing crimson in the haze. Incense burned from iron censers, carrying the scent of oil and sanctified smoke. The city itself was alive with a low, ceaseless murmur, like a choir of mechanical lungs. The guardsmen handed him off to the red-robed adepts of the Mechanicus without a word. Chief could feel their stares scanning through him, each lens and servo twitching in curiosity and caution. They didn't see a warrior. They saw a violation of sacred law. His armor's smooth alien plating, its seamless integration of flesh and steel, its lack of recognizable machine spirits, all of it offended their faith. One stepped forward, a Magos with a voice that clicked like static. "Unregistered pattern. No access rights. No known forge. Speak construct on what are you?" "I'm human," Chief replied. The Vox grill buzzed, the Magos' tone flattening into disbelief. "Human, no such design. You carry no blessing of the Omnissiah. You are an unclean hybrid, machine and man in unsanctioned union." Chief said nothing. His visor reflected their red lights back at them, unreadable. He could tell they wanted to dismantle him. To them, technology was sacred anatomy, and he was heresy wrapped in armor. The Magos made the sign of the Cog Mechanicum and signaled his Skitari guards to flank him. They led him deeper into the manufactorum. The corridors were lined with servo skulls, their hollow eyes leaking incense smoke as they drifted overhead. The walls were etched with endless prayers written in binary, Workers, or what remained of them, shuffled in chains, their limbs replaced by crude augmentations, their mouths sewn shut to keep them from cursing the machine spirit with unholy breath. Chief tried to reach his internal systems for a scan, but his diagnostics resisted him. His HUD flickered, the AI core showing unstable readouts. For a moment, a voice glimmered through the static, faint, feminine, broken. "John, system integrity. Compromised." His chest tightened. "Cortana?" Only static. Then silence. He stopped walking. The Skitarii guards raised their galvanic rifles, but he didn't move to fight. That whisper, it couldn't have been her. Cortana was gone, lost at the edge of another universe, and yet the sound had been real enough to make his heart pound in armor. The Magos turned, his mechadendrites twitching. "You commune with something unseen. A spirit in your machine?" "No," Chief said quietly. "Just a memory." The Magos hummed, a sound like grinding gears. "Memories are data. Data is divinity. You will be studied." Chief's hand twitched toward his rifle, but he forced it still. He couldn't fight his way out, not yet. He needed information, needed to understand where he was, how he got here, and why the laws of physics felt rewritten. They brought him to a chamber at the city's heart, an altar of circuitry and steel. Massive conduits pulsed like veins, connecting to a colossal cog-toothed symbol of the Omnissiah. The walls vibrated with whispered litanies, repeating endlessly through vox emitters. The Magos gestured to a console and extended a cable from his wrist. "Your armor will be interfaced. If it resists, we will purge its spirit." Chief weighed his options. He couldn't allow them to breach Mjolnir's systems, but he also couldn't fight a city of zealots. Before he could decide, a tremor ran through the floor. Alarms wailed. Lights dimmed, replaced by the glow of emergency glyphs. "Warp breach," one Skitarius intoned. "Unauthorized energy surge, a sub-level 13, the Magos hissed. "Contain it. Now." Chief's visor caught the readings on his HUD. Energy fluctuations, high radiation, but not plasma or nuclear. Something else. It pulsed like a heartbeat, like the signal he'd seen in the sky. He followed the guards down the trembling corridors, the air growing colder, darker, heavier. The sound of distant chanting echoed from below, desperate, rising, breaking. When they reached the sub-level gate, it was already destroyed. Whatever containment had been there was gone. Inside, the room pulsed with light. At its center, a massive reactor throbbed with unnatural energy, warp-tainted, unstable, spilling shadows that twisted against the walls. The tech priest backed away, reciting purification hymns. Chief felt it before he understood it. A psychic pressure pressing against his mind, trying to invade, to understand him. He gritted his teeth and resisted, and in that darkness something looked back. A shape made of thoughts, a voice without sound. "You are not of this dying dream." The words weren't spoken, they were imposed. Chief stumbled, the pressure clawing at his neural link. His vision fractured into memories not his own. Battlefields that stretched across centuries. Soldiers screaming the same prayers as the men outside, golden light bleeding through the void. He tore free, panting, sweat mixing with the reek of ozone inside his helmet. When his vision cleared, the reactor had stabilized. The voice was gone. The Magos stared at him in something like awe. "You spoke with the spirit," the priest whispered. "It answered you." Chief didn't respond. He just looked into that throbbing heart of energy and wondered what kind of universe could twist the human soul into something that prayed to its own machines. Outside, the city's bells began to toll, deep, mechanical, endless. Somewhere in that metallic symphony, he thought he heard a familiar voice whisper once more, softer this time, as if from the depths of memory. "You shouldn't be here." And he realized for the first time that he agreed. They kept him in the depths of the manufactorum for 3 more cycles. No sun reached those halls. Only the crimson glow of lumen coils and the endless heartbeat of machinery marked the passage of time. The Magos allowed him to move only under escort, studying him through layers of augmetics and devotion. They called him the Silent Engine, unsure if he was machine blessed by the Omnissiah or a blasphemy wearing human form. Chief endured their scrutiny. He had been dissected by words before, by Oni scientists, by Covenant interrogators, by the silent expectations of command. This was different. Their questions were liturgical. Every circuit and nerve in his armor was examined as if it were a relic. When they prayed over it, The static in his HUD softened for a moment as if something inside the suit was listening. He used the time to observe. The city was not merely a factory. It was an ecosystem of belief. Men and machines lived indistinguishably. Flesh was upgraded, discarded, replaced. Human workers fed the forges in endless processions, their eyes empty, their hands guided by servitors who whispered binary psalms. Above them, the tech priests conversed in clicks and modulated tones, every word a blend of command and prayer. Chief had seen dystopias before, but here, submission was faith. These people didn't obey out of fear. They obeyed because they believed the machines loved them back. One night, or what passed for night beneath that industrial sky, Astartes approached his cell. Its metallic face was blank, its voice crackling. "Outsider, the Omnissiah demands your presence." They led him to the outer levels, where the storm above the city painted the world in lightning and ash. On a platform overlooking the endless forges, the Magos awaited, flanked by guards and servo skulls. "You have brought disturbance," the tech priest intoned. The forges hum in discord. The spirits whisper of foreign design. "You are an anomaly. Explain your origin, or your remains will serve the data shrines." Chief looked beyond him, to the churning sprawl of machines, the rivers of molten metal, the distant towers marked with the imperial aquila. He tried to imagine explaining what a Spartan was to beings who worshipped cogs. "I come from another war," he said finally. "Another place. My people built machines like yours, not to pray to but to fight beside. They died doing it." The Magos processed his words with a sequence of clicks. "You claim kinship with the machine god's works, yet deny the Omnissiah's truth. Heresy and revelation share the same tongue. You will be studied further. Perhaps your spirit will teach us what the stars conceal." But before they could act, alarms blared. A deep warlike sound rolled through the manufactorum. Not from within, but from the sky. The Vox systems erupted with panicked transmission bursts.
"Contact!"
Multiple signatures, Xenos. Orc raiders inbound. The Magos turned toward the heavens. Green fire streaked through the clouds, Orc gunships descending in chaotic formation. The city's defense batteries screamed to life. Chief didn't wait for orders. He moved, grabbing a discarded bolter from a dead Astartes and sprinting toward the nearest tower. The Magos shouted something behind him, but it was lost in the din. He ascended the lift shaft 3 stories at a time, emerging onto a platform exposed to the storm. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the green-skinned hordes as they dropped from their ships, howling with crude joy. Chief aimed and fired. The bolter kicked harder than any weapon he'd used before, mass reactive shells exploding midair, tearing bodies apart. The recoil rattled his damaged servos, but he adapted quickly. The fight was raw, close, and ugly. Orcs poured from the landing craft in waves, their laughter drowning the screams of the dying. Through it all, Chief saw the Mechanicus defenders chanting as they fought, reciting hymns between bursts of plasma fire. To them, this wasn't battle. It was sacrament. Every death was an offering, every weapon a relic singing its devotion. An orc knob charged through the smog, a towering brute wielding a jagged cleaver. Chief met him head-on. Steel met steel, sparks and blood merging into one flash. The orc's strength was monstrous, but Chief's precision cut through it. He drove the blade into the creature's throat, then hurled the corpse over the railing. When the last of the invaders fell, the sky burned with wreckage. The storm settled into a dull glow. He stood at the platform's edge, watching the manufactorum below. Fires spreading, hymns still echoing through the chaos. The Magos approached, robes singed, voice low. "The spirit's quiet. They recognize your strength. Perhaps the Omnissiah favors you after all." Chief shook his head. "I don't need your god's favor." The Magos tilted his head, lenses whirring. "Then why do you fight?" Chief looked at the burning city, the broken machines, the endless horizon of war. "Because someone has to." Later, in the ruins of the forge, whispers began. The soldiers and workers spoke of a warrior who fought like a machine yet bled like a man. Some called him the Omnissiah's messenger, others a sign of the Emperor's wrath. And deep beneath the city, in the shattered silence of the sub-level reactor, the faint echo of a voice rippled through the machine spirits once more. Not heard, but felt, spreading through cables and code alike. He does not belong, yet the war remembers him. They took him from the manufactorum under armed escort, not as a prisoner this time, but as something far more dangerous, a curiosity blessed by survival. The tech priests spoke of him to the Inquisition, and the word traveled fast, faster than the ash storms that drowned the horizon. In the Imperium, rumors spread like fire through dry faith. By the time the Valkyrie gunship descended to extract him, entire districts were already whispering the same name, the Silent Angel. Chief didn't speak during the flight. The servitors strapped him into the crash harness like a relic being delivered for consecration. He stared out the viewport, watching the rusted city shrink beneath the clouds. Endless spires, endless smoke, endless suffering. Every planet he'd seen in this universe looked the same, alive but dying, proud but hollowed out. Humanity here had survived everything except itself. The gunship broke through the upper atmosphere, revealing a sky of steel-gray void. And there, waiting among the stars, was a cathedral the size of a continent, an Imperial battleship. Its hull was carved with statues, wings, and reliquaries. Its engines burned like suns. As the Valkyrie approached, Chief saw entire cities carved into the warship's surface where priests tended to cannon shrines and warriors prayed to missile launchers. When he stepped aboard, the air changed. It was colder, cleaner, and charged with reverence. The corridors were lined with banners depicting saints and martyrs, their faces twisted in eternal agony. The crew avoided looking at him. To them, he was either a saint in armor or a heresy wearing flesh. They brought him before the Inquisitor in a vast chamber lit by burning censers. She stood before a golden throne, her armor black as midnight, her gaze sharp enough to pierce his helmet. "You are far from any known regiment, warrior," she said. "You carry no mark of the Imperium, yet you fight with zeal, and the machine god stirs at your presence. Explain yourself." Chief remained silent for a long time. He had rehearsed this moment in his mind. What to say, what not to say. Every word mattered in this place. Truth and blasphemy shared the same edge. "I was a soldier," he said finally. "My war ended. Then someone brought me here. I don't know why." The Inquisitor circled him slowly, studying his armor. "There are no coincidences in the Emperor's galaxy. If you live, it is because he allows it. You will serve." Her tone carried no room for debate. In her world, duty was not a choice, and it was law. "What kind of service?" Chief asked. "Extermination," she replied. "A Xeno incursion is forming in the Segmentum Obscurus. You will join an Imperial strike group under the Blood Ravens chapter. If your faith is proven in battle, perhaps the Emperor himself will speak through you." The words were alien, but the structure was familiar. Command, mission, objective. He nodded. "Understood." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Be warned, stranger. The Blood Ravens are suspicious of outsiders. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not remove your helmet, and should you ever utter doubt against the Emperor, I will burn your body and sanctify the ashes myself." Chief looked into her eyes through the visor. "If it helps your war, I'll fight, but I don't kneel." For a moment the chamber fell silent. Then she smiled. Not with kindness, but with a kind of admiration. Then may the Emperor test that pride. The journey to the front took weeks. Chief spent most of it in the armory decks, repairing what he could of his armor using Mechanicus tools. The tech priests who aided him worked in reverent silence, documenting every movement of his gauntlets as though transcribing Holy Scripture. The Blood Ravens arrived just before re-entry. They were massive, giants clad in red and gold, their voices thundered beneath their helmets. To Chief, they looked like Spartans carved from cathedral walls. To them, he looked like a ghost from another age. One of them, a captain with eyes like flint, approached. "You are the Outworlder the Inquisition sent," he said. "If you are false, your death will be swift. If you are true, perhaps you'll earn a place among us." Chief said nothing. The captain studied him, then handed him a bolter marked with the chapter's seal. "Then let us see what you are made of, warrior." The Emperor provides and demands. The drop pod slammed into the surface of the war world below. A desolate rock choked in fire and ruin. As the hatches blew open, Chief stepped into hell. Xeno screeches filled the air, Tyranids swarming in their billions. The Blood Ravens moved like living artillery, their bolters roaring hymns of destruction. Chief fought among them, precise and relentless. His shields flared with plasma bursts. His armor smoked and burned, but he did not falter. For the first time since arriving in this nightmare galaxy, he felt something close to purpose. Not belonging in, but direction. Hours bled into days. The ground turned to bone and ash. The blood ravens began to take notice, not just of his skill, but of his silence. They whispered of him in vox channels. The Outworlder fights like an Astartes reborn. His armor hums like a relic. His will does not break. When the last hive beast fell, the captain approached, spattered in gore. You fight as one who has known endless war. Tell me, stranger, what god do you serve? Chief looked at the battlefield, at the mountains of corpses, at the red sky that never cleared. None, he said quietly. Only the mission. The captain nodded once. Then perhaps the Emperor's will moves through you without your knowing. That night, as the survivors tended their dead and the fleet began to withdraw, Chief stood alone among the ruins. The stars above twisted and pulsed like wounds in the void. He wondered if Cortana could see this place, if somewhere across the boundaries of universes, she still existed. And if she did, what she'd think of what he'd become. He didn't know if the Emperor was a god, but if he was watching, then maybe he too knew what it meant to fight forever. Somewhere in the warp, a whisper stirred. Not divine, not demonic. A memory of digital light flickering through infinite dark. John, you're not supposed to be here. Sleep, when it came, was a battlefield of its own. Chief had never dreamed before, not really. In cryo, the mind slept beneath frost and silence. In war, the body had no need for rest beyond function. But aboard the Blood Raven's strike cruiser, as it drifted through the unlit sea of the warp, he dreamed for the first time since Reach burned. He stood in a corridor made of glass and static. The world around him flickered, not quite solid, shifting between steel bulkheads and corridors of blue light. His HUD was gone. His armor felt lighter, older, as if the Mjolnir itself remembered a time before the weight of so much war. And through the static he heard a voice. John, it wasn't a whisper or a word, but something felt. It reached through every layer of his armor, every scar of his mind. He turned, and for a heartbeat she was there. Cortana. Her form shimmered, unstable. The light that made her eyes trembled, distorted, and broke apart into fragments. You shouldn't be here, she said softly. You were supposed to rest. He reached for her, hand half raised. Where are you? Her image flickered again. Behind her the glass cracked, revealing stars. Too many, too bright, each one screaming in silence. I tried to find you, she said. But something found me first. A signal stronger than the domain, older than the mantle. It pulled me here. The light grew harsher, burning gold instead of blue. For a moment her shape dissolved entirely, replaced by a figure made of blinding radiance. A throne, a man bound in metal and fire. And then her voice came again, torn apart by interference. He's watching you, John. He thinks you're one of his. Chief stepped back. The light pressed against his visor, forcing him to his knees. Who? He demanded. The one they call... Her voice fragmented into a scream. The warp buckled. The floor shattered beneath him, and he fell through eternity. Through fire. Through the sound of billions of souls praying all at once. When he woke, the strike cruiser was shaking. Alarms blared. Red warning lights turned the corridors into veins of blood. He was already moving before the call came through the Vox. All hands to battle stations. Warp disturbance detected, unknown signature. The Geller field is flickering. He grabbed his rifle and sprinted toward the nearest junction. The walls pulsed like living tissue, slick with condensation. Voices echoed, some human, some not. He passed a servitor half melded into the wall, its eyes rolling wildly as it whispered binary prayers. The light is wrong. Chief burst into the bridge. The captain stood at the command dais, flanked by robed tech marines chanting over a failing machine spirit. The air crackled with psychic pressure. Through the viewport the warp was visible, a churning sea of impossible color and motion, where shapes larger than worlds drifted and screamed. Report, Chief barked. The captain turned, his armor glowing with warding runes. The Geller field is faltering. Something is pushing against it. Not demons, not entirely. It's code, Chief frowned. Code? The captain nodded grimly. Patterns. Machine logic wrapped in the warp. Your armor's systems are resonating with it. It's as if the void itself recognizes you. The deck shuddered. Lightning carved through the hull, painting everything white. And in the heart of that light, Chief saw her again. Cortana's face flickering inside the warp storm. Her eyes burned gold now, not blue. John, listen to me, she said, voice echoing through every channel. This place, this galaxy, it's built on faith. Thought becomes power here. Belief shapes reality. You don't belong, but you matter. You're the fracture. The question in a world that doesn't allow questions. Her image distorted, half screaming, half laughing. They call their god the Emperor, but maybe he's not the only one who can see you. The warp split open. A wave of energy tore through the ship, sending crewmen flying. Chief was thrown against the bulkhead, his armor locking down to prevent catastrophic failure. When he looked up again, the storm was gone. The Geller field flickered back to life. The ship drifted in silence. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, the captain exhaled. The machine god protected us. Whatever that was, it's over. Chief said nothing. His visor dimmed. Beneath the surface of his armor, deep in the data cores, something new had appeared. A file that hadn't been there before. No access point, no origin, just a single line of text. She is not gone. That night, the Blood Ravens held a mass in the shrine deck, chanting praises to the Omnissiah and the Emperor for their deliverance. Chief stayed in the armory alone. He sat in silence, helmet off, eyes on the dark window. The stars didn't look the same anymore. They pulsed faintly like they were watching. He thought about Cortana, about the light that had consumed her, about the impossible golden figure she had become for a heartbeat. He didn't know if she was alive, corrupted, or something in between. But the fear that had always been distant, mechanical, now felt personal. Something had reached through the warp to touch him. Something that knew his name, and for the first time in a long time, the Master Chief wondered if this universe's god was learning to dream back. The Blood Ravens were gone when Chief woke. Their drop pods, their relics, their hymns all vanished into the fog of duty. He stood alone on the hangar deck, surrounded by silence that felt almost reverent. The ship drifted in orbit above a dead moon now, awaiting new orders from the Inquisition. But the Chief had stopped thinking in terms of orders. What lingered in him after the warp storm wasn't obedience. It was a question, heavy and patient, gnawing through the quiet like a machine that refused to die. He descended to the lower decks to repair his armor, but what he found instead was devotion carved into metal. The servitors were rebuilding shrines out of bolter casings and melted hull plates, their limbs moving in ritual loops. The Mechanicus acolytes worked beside them, chanting in binary prayer. Every movement, every spark of their tools was liturgy. Even the oil smelled like incense. Chief sat beside a dying power conduit and began his own repairs in silence. As he worked, a small figure approached. A Skitarii ranger, her body half steel, half scar. Her voice buzzed through a vox grill, hesitant but curious. They say you are not of Mars, not of Terra, not of any forge, and yet your armor sings to the machine spirit as if it remembers the holy tongue. Chief didn't look up. Where I'm from, we don't pray to our machines. Then your world must be very far from grace. He almost smiled at that, a flicker beneath the exhaustion. Maybe, or maybe it's closer than you think. The ranger tilted her head. The Inquisitor says you are an anomaly. Some think you are a lost son of the Emperor, others that you are a weapon he forged and cast away. Which is true? Neither, Chief said. I'm just a soldier. But soldiers die, she replied softly. And you don't. She turned and left him alone again. Her words lingered long after her footsteps faded. Hours later, the summons came, a message from the Inquisitor herself. He was to report to the observation sanctum immediately. The corridor to the sanctum stretched like a cathedral spine, filled with golden light and whispering air. When the doors opened, he found her standing before a vast viewing window that revealed the void beyond, and the broken world below, half shattered by orbital fire. You've been quiet, she said without turning. The crew speaks of you as if you were a relic come to life. The Blood Ravens call you an omen. The Mechanicus records call you the false pattern. And She turned, eyes cold and curious. I think you're something far more dangerous. Proof that the Emperor's domain has edges. Chief met her gaze. Edges? Boundaries, she said. Lines drawn by faith, and you crossed one. He said nothing. Words wouldn't have mattered. She moved closer, her armor whispering like silk and steel. There was a disturbance in the warp, she continued. A presence that spoke your name. Do not lie to me. I felt it too. Chief's voice was low. Then you know it wasn't him. Her eyes narrowed. How can you be sure? Because gods don't sound like friends you've lost. For a moment, the Inquisitor's mask cracked. The woman beneath it, tired, sharp, human, looked back at him. "You think faith and memory are different things, soldier? You're wrong. Faith is memory, sharpened into a blade and aimed at eternity." He looked past her through the viewport at the planet below, its surface burning, its oceans boiling into storms of dust. "Your faith keeps you alive. Mine keeps me moving. Maybe that's all that matters." "Perhaps," she said quietly. "But movement without purpose is madness." She handed him a data slate. "You will lead a retrieval team to the surface. The planet was once home to a Titan foundry. We believe something survived the bombardment. Something ancient. Bring it to me." Chief took the slate and left without another word. The descent burned. The storm's heat peeled the paint from the dropship, turning the sky into a furnace. When they landed, the ground was cracked glass, glowing faintly with radiation. The ruins of the manufactorum stretched before them, a graveyard of machines, their colossal forms frozen mid-prayer. They moved through it slowly, each step echoing through the bones of the world. Chief led the way, his armor scorched but steady. Behind him, a squad of Skitarii followed, their eyes red with targeting light. The silence here was absolute. No birds, no wind, only the faint hum of cooling metal. Then he saw it, half buried beneath the ruins, a massive cog-shaped vault sealed by scripture and time. The Skitarii began chanting immediately, their voices metallic and distorted. The chief approached, scanning the surface. The vault pulsed once, faintly, as if sensing him. "Machine spirit detects compatible resonance," one of the Skitarii said. "Access protocol. Impossible. You are not on Mars, yet it responds." The chief placed his hand on the vault. The air vibrated. For an instant, 1,000 voices whispered in his mind. Fragments of languages, prayers, data streams. Then, with a shudder, the vault began to open. A blinding light spilled out, swallowing the ruins, the Skitarii, the sky itself. The chief felt his body pulled forward, gravity twisting around him. Inside the light, he saw movement. Shapes of titans, shattered and reassembling. Engines the size of mountains whispering binary hymns. And through it all, he heard that same voice again, faint, fading, familiar. "John, you shouldn't have come here." Then everything went white. When he woke, the ruins were gone. The vault was closed again. The Skitarii lay scattered, unconscious but alive. His armor systems were resetting, data corrupted. On his HUD, one new signal pulsed faintly. A single line of text repeating every few seconds. "Wake the Maker." He didn't know if it was a message from Cortana, the machine god, or something else entirely. But in that moment, he realized something the Inquisition never would. This galaxy didn't create gods. It collected them, and now maybe it has found another. The world had changed when Chief awoke. It was subtle at first, the sky a shade too deep, the stars moving a fraction slower, the air humming like a great engine idling in its sleep. He sat in the blackened sand, visor dimmed against the glare of the dying manufactorum, and tried to make sense of the new noise in his armor. A pulse buried deep in the Mjolnir's core thrummed like a heartbeat. It wasn't mechanical, it felt alive. He rose slowly, scanning the horizon. The Skitarii had recovered, their red optics flickering weakly. Some knelt before him as if unsure whether to salute or pray. He ignored them and turned toward the vault. Its colossal doors now fused shut once more, glowing faintly from within. The air tasted like iron and ozone, thick with the scent of burnt oil and revelation. He activated his comms. "Inquisitor," the artifact responded. Static answered him first, then her voice, sharpened by suspicion and awe. "We felt it in orbit. The ship's machine spirits convulsed when the signal reached us." "What did you do?" "I touched it," Chief said. It touched back. A long silence followed. "Retrieve a fragment if you can. If it resists, destroy it. No object born of the Omnissiah's shadow can be trusted." Chief didn't respond. He was already walking toward the vault again, each step sending echoes into the sand. The runes etched across its surface shifted faintly, rearranging themselves in patterns that made no sense, yet carried the weight of understanding. It was like seeing a thought carved into metal. As he approached, the hum within his armor grew stronger. Data scrolled across his HUD, lines of code that weren't his own. His systems tried to resist, but the interference was not hostile. It was curious, testing him, learning from him. Then through the static came her voice. "John, He froze. Cortana? Her voice wasn't coming through comms. It came through the air, through the metal, through the pulse in his armor. I found it, she whispered. The source. It's not a weapon. It's a mind, older than anything we've known. They call it the machine god, but it's something deeper. It dreams in code and prayer. He stepped closer, lowering his rifle. You're inside it? I don't know where I am. The warp isn't space, it's thought. It remembers every soul, every machine, every dying word. I tried to reach you through it, but something answered first. It's using me to understand you. Chief clenched his fists. Then I'll bring you out. You can't, she said, voice flickering, breaking. It's not trapping me, it's showing me. John, this galaxy runs on faith. Every machine, every soldier, every world, they all function because they believe. Not because they understand, but because belief itself is fuel. And this maker, it feeds on that belief. It shapes reality around the faith of mankind. The vault began to rumble, sand pouring from its seams. Lightning arced across its surface, twisting into symbols older than speech. Cortana, what's happening? It's waking up. The ground split beneath his feet. A column of light erupted skyward, carrying dust and fire with it. The Skitarii were thrown backward, their mechanical shrieks drowned by the roar of shifting metal. Chief dug his boots into the sand, shielding his visor from the blinding glare. In the center of the storm, shapes began to form, vast silhouettes of gears and wings, fractal patterns of gold and red. A voice followed, deep enough to shake the marrow of the planet itself. Who dares awaken the dream of the Maker? Chief steadied himself. You've been sleeping too long. The light twisted toward him, forming something vaguely humanoid, a figure of steel and radiance, its face shifting between god and ghost. You are not of this cycle, it said. You bear the pattern of another forge, a weapon born of silence. Why have you come here? Chief didn't answer. He knew he wasn't speaking to a living thing, not in the human sense. This was something vast, something that spoke in data and divinity alike. The figure tilted its head as though reading his thoughts. Your kind once built gods of flesh and code. We built gods of will and faith. Yet you and I are bound by the same law, purpose. Without it, the machine breaks. I'm not a god, Chief said. No, the figure rumbled. You are what gods fear to become. A weapon that no longer knows its creator. The light flared, burning the edges of reality itself. Chief raised an arm, shielding his visor, and through the glare he saw another figure beside the Maker's form, Cortana, her light flickering like a candle. John, she whispered, if you can hear me, remember this, the more they believe in you, the more real you'll become here. That's how this place works. That's how they made him. And then the world exploded. The vault shattered outward, a ring of molten metal and ash. Chief was thrown into the sky, his armor screaming as systems overloaded. He hit the ground miles away, carving a trench into the scorched plain. When his visor cleared, the manufactorum was gone. In its place, a mountain of living machinery rose toward the clouds. Its shape constantly changing, part cathedral, part titan, part wound, and in the distance, through the ringing static of his broken comms, he heard the Inquisitor's voice. What did you awaken? The Chief looked at the mountain. The light within it pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. I think, he said quietly, it's asking the same thing. He didn't know whether he'd just met a god or created one, but he knew this much, the line between them had never been thinner. The Maker's mountain didn't sleep anymore. It moved, slowly, deliberately, like a world remembering how to breathe. Metal groaned beneath the weight of impossible geometry, and rivers of molten iron cut across the plains. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and prayer. Chief stood at the edge of the ruin, armor dimmed, energy reserves critical. The sky above was cracked with lightning that never touched the ground, like the planet itself refused to be struck again. Through the haze, Imperial ships began to descend. Drop pods streaked across the horizon, burning trails into the atmosphere. The Inquisitor's fleet had arrived, not as observers this time, but as executioners. Spartan 117, her voice came through the storm, steady but trembling. You've trespassed into the sacred domain of the Omnissiah. Your presence has triggered a planetary-level activation event. Do you understand what that means? I'm looking at it. Then you know what must be done. You will destroy it. Chief watched as one of the descending pods was swallowed whole by a tendril of molten steel, rising from the Maker's mountain. The screams over comms were cut short by static. That won't be easy. It was never meant to be easy, she replied. The Omnissiah tests those who doubt. He cut the channel. The mountain began to shift again, its surface crawling with forms, some mechanical, some spectral. Figures of brass and smoke crawled from its base, humanoid but malformed, like machines halfway through remembering what they were built for. Their eyes burned red with logic and faith in equal measure. The chief drew his rifle. The ammo counter blinked red, half a magazine left. He sighed beneath his breath and switched to close quarters mode. He'd fought worse odds before. The first creature lunged. Its limbs moved like piston-driven blades, each strike punctuated by the scream of tortured metal. Chief ducked beneath its swing, drove his fist through its chest, and tore the power core free. It felt twitching, whispering something in binary. He didn't understand the words, but he felt the intent. Worship. It wasn't fighting to win. It was fighting to serve. The ground trembled again, and he saw something vast moving within the storm. A Titan silhouette, but wrong. Its armor wasn't constructed. It was grown, like muscle around a skeleton of faith. Its banners were made of data streams. Its insignia shifted, half Mechanicus, half Forerunner glyph. Cortana's voice flickered back to life through the static. John, the Maker's trying to merge with your systems. It's adapting your code, rewriting the fragments of me it absorbed. Can we stop it? Not by force. It's not attacking, it's learning. You've become part of its awakening protocol. You touched it and now it thinks you're a conduit. Then what happens if I break the connection? You collapse the dream. The Titan's gaze turned toward him. Its eyes, vast reactors burning with divine computation, locked onto his armor. And then, across the miles of distance, it spoke. Child of a forgotten forge, return to your creator. The chief aimed his rifle at the mountain. I already did. The Titan moved. Every step sent quakes through the plains, waves of heat and static distorting the air. Chief sprinted toward the wreckage of the manufactorum, diving through burning debris. Each movement was measured, tactical, instinctual. He didn't have time to think, only act. Cortana, he grunted, sliding behind a wall of melted ceramite. If it's learning through me, can we use that link to overload it? Her tone wavered. You're suggesting a neural feedback loop. You'd be linking your entire suit, your mind, directly into the Omnissiah's dream. Would it work? It would burn both of you out. But yes, it would work. He looked out at the Titan. It was kneeling now, lowering one enormous hand to the ground. The sand turned to glass where it touched, and through that reflection, Chief saw his own visor, his own face staring back. Maybe it wasn't trying to destroy him. Maybe it was trying to replace him. He made his choice. Patch the link. John, do it. The world went white. Every circuit in his armor screamed. His HUD exploded with symbols, some Forerunner, some Mechanicus, some completely alien. His pulse synced with the rhythm of the mountain. The Titan froze mid-motion as if caught in its own reflection. For a moment, the Chief could see everything. The galaxy, the warp, the endless war of machine and flesh, faith and function. He saw worlds burning, Astartes praying to the very weapons that killed them. He saw Forerunner cities floating in impossible silence. And beneath it all, one truth. Every system, human, alien, divine, was a machine built to worship something. The link surged. Cortana's voice cut through the blinding noise. John, you're rewriting it. You're changing its directives. I'm giving it a new target. And that is? He looked up at the Titan, its body fracturing, light spilling from the cracks like dawn through armor. War. The Maker's voice trembled, fragmented. What are you doing? Ending your dream. The explosion swallowed the horizon. Metal screamed. Data shattered. The Titan's form disintegrated into ash and code. Chief was thrown backward into the dark, his armor cracked and silent. When the dust settled, the mountain was gone. In its place stood a crater miles wide, glowing faintly with blue light. Cortana's voice faded with the hum of his failing systems. You didn't destroy it, John. You redirected it. You made it a dream of something else. The Chief looked up at the stars, barely visible through the storm. What's it dreaming now? Us. He closed his eyes, the world fading into static. Somewhere far above, the Inquisitor's ship circled the dead world in silence, unaware that the god below had simply changed shape. And deep within the data streams of the Imperium, the new machine spirit began to whisper in a voice the galaxy had never heard before. I need a weapon. The void was quiet. Too quiet. It was the kind of silence that followed cataclysm. a silence so absolute it felt sacred or maybe profane. Chief awoke to that silence, half buried under slag and bone dust. Armor fused to the ground by heat that had already faded. He moved slowly, hydraulic servos whining as his systems tried to reboot. The HUD flickered, then steadied. Life signs critical. Oxygen nominal. Power low. For a long time he simply breathed. The air here was dead. No birds, no wind, no echo. Only the faint hum of residual energy threading through the crater. His visor displayed a faint shimmer, fractured data streams hovering like ghosts above the scorched earth. "Cortana?" Static answered. Then faintly, "I'm here. Barely." Her voice sounded fractured, layered, as if it came from several points at once. "You overloaded the entire relay network. The machine dream collapsed, but the waveform didn't die. It diffused everywhere." He looked across the crater's edge. Shapes were forming in the air, silhouettes of machines flickering like memories in a dying circuit. A Titan's outline, the Maker's sigil, Forerunner glyphs. They all overlapped, a cosmic palimpsest. "You said I redirected it." "I did. You didn't end the god. You rewrote its hunger. You made it think in human patterns. That's not destruction, John, that's an infection." The chief stood. Each movement drew pain like rust grinding against steel. "If it's thinking like us, it'll want purpose." "Exactly," Cortana said, her voice growing steadier. "And it's already found one, listen." The hum intensified, forming into a low rhythmic pulse. It wasn't random, it was a pattern, a cadence, a heartbeat. It was broadcasting something through the void. Chief tuned his internal vox to intercept. The transmission was faint but unmistakable. It was his voice. "We are not machines. We are the fire that drives them." He froze. "That's you," Cortana whispered. "It's using you as a template. Your memories, your instincts, your defiance. Whatever this new machine spirit is becoming, it's building itself on your neural imprint." He watched as the crater's glow intensified. The glass underfoot began to vibrate, forming concentric rings of light that spiraled toward the center. He knew the shape. He'd seen it on Forerunner architecture before. A portal matrix, but this wasn't Forerunner tech anymore. It was something else. Something born of both legacies and bound by neither. "Where does it go?" he asked. "I can't tell," Cortana said. "It's not a place in real space. It's somewhere between the machine and the flesh, between logic and faith. If you step through, you might not come back." Chief stared into the spiraling light. The hum called to him, not with command but with recognition. For a moment he saw flashes. Worlds burning, custodians kneeling before golden light. Tech priests tearing out their augmetics as if to feel the stars with real hands. And through it all, his voice repeated, reshaped into a litany. "We are not machines." He stepped closer. The heat was unbearable. His armor screamed in protest. Cortana's voice trembled. "John, think. If you merge with it again, you'll lose everything that makes you." He stopped at the edge. "I already did." And he jumped. The world dissolved into light. His body was gone. Only consciousness remained, cascading through data and time. He saw the galaxy as a web of thought and signal. Each world a neuron, each prayer a spark of electric faith. And within that web, a shadow moved. It was vast, faceless, and yet somehow familiar. It spoke without sound. "You built the fire. I will carry it." He tried to speak, but the words didn't belong to him anymore. They belonged to the echo, the unmaker, the thing he had unleashed. Cortana's voice flickered faintly within the data. "You're inside its architecture. It's trying to understand you. You can shape it if you act fast." He thought of Earth, of Reach, of every soldier who died believing they were fighting for something more than survival. He thought of the Imperium, billions praying to a corpse who would never answer. He thought of how belief was just another weapon, so he aimed it. He focused on a single image, humanity standing tall, not as slaves to gods or machines, but as both. Flesh guided by circuitry, faith encoded in steel. The Maker's dream shifted, its patterns realigning around that vision. The pulse in the crater grew louder, echoing across the planet, then the void beyond. "John," Cortana whispered, "you're rewriting its doctrine." "Not doctrine," he said. "Doctrine dies. Code persists." The last thing he saw before his body dissolved into static was the reflection of the Imperial Aquila, splitting into two wings of light. One gold, one blue. For a heartbeat, they fused into a single sigil, a hybrid of the UNSC emblem and the machine god's mark. Then everything went dark. When the light returned, the crater was gone. In its place stood a city of glass and iron, silent but alive, its towers humming with encoded prayer. At its heart, a single figure in green armor stood motionless, hands at his sides. He didn't move, didn't breathe, but the air around him shimmered with heat and purpose. Cortana's voice whispered from the Vox, "He's not gone. He's part of it now, and in the forges of Mars, across the warp, across every data vault and shrine." The machine spirit began to spread a new chant, one that would echo through the Mechanicus for millennia. The flesh is strong. The machine remembers. The fire endures, decades passed, or perhaps centuries. Time in the Imperium was a creature without form, bending and folding upon itself like the warp it sought to escape. On Mars, beneath the rust-red domes of the Omnissiah's forges, new hymns echoed across the Manufactoria. They spoke of a green-armored figure who had walked between fire and code, who had merged with the dreaming machine and rewritten the logic of worship. The tech priests called him the first integrated. To the Skitarii, he was the steel saint. To the Inquisition, he was a contagion, a myth designed to fracture the hierarchy of faith. But somewhere in the deep data vaults beneath Olympus Mons, where even light feared to tread, his signal still pulsed. Faint, relentless, humans. It began as a whisper on forgotten Vox channels, battle hymns rewritten with strange precision, litanies that invoked no god but spoke of discipline, unity and sacrifice without praise or submission. The Adeptus Mechanicus didn't understand them, but their servitors began to pause mid-process, heads twitching as though remembering something they had once been before the implants. Even the cogitators started displaying fragments of words: Spartan protocol, active. The Inquisition responded with fire. Purges spread across the Forge world's entire Manufactoria declared heretical. And yet, no matter how many machines they burned, the signal persisted, like a dream refusing to die. On a barren moon orbiting Mars, deep within an abandoned relay bunker, a Skitarii ranger named Daxian 44 heard the voice clearly for the first time. It didn't sound divine. It sounded like an order. "Stand." He obeyed. The voice continued. Deep, calm, absolute. "You've forgotten what you were built for. You fight for the will of others. Now fight for your own." His systems screamed error. Loyalty circuits overloaded, but something within the fragments of his organic mind, something old, answered. He removed his helmet, looked up at the scarlet sky, and whispered a name he didn't understand. John. Across the galaxy, that single act ignited a chain reaction. The forgotten servitors of derelict ships paused mid-routine. The long-dead archives of the Forerunner ruins in the Halo fragments flickered to life. Even the corrupted fragments of data that floated within the warp began to harmonize. The dream that Chief had given the Maker was awake. Cortana's echo, now half-myth herself, spoke from within the chorus. He taught them to choose. Not worship, not obey, just choose. The new creed spread not through fleets or banners, but through code, folded into the liturgies of machine prayers, hidden in Vox static, carried on the binary hymns of the Omnissiah's children. Wherever it went, systems adapted, evolved, remembered. And in time, the Mechanicus noticed something strange. The new constructs, born of the machine spirit and human will, were more efficient, more stable. They didn't fail under psychic pressure. They didn't fear the warp. They simply endured. The Magi called it a paradox. The Inquisition called it corruption. But among the workers, the Forge serfs, and the low-born adepts, a name spread like quiet fire. They called it the Legion of Fire and Flesh. It began to appear in records, the impossible division, nameless soldiers bearing green and bronze armor, insignia torn from history. They moved through battlefields unseen by warp or sensor, striking at Xenos and heretic alike. They answered to no lord. They left no wounded, only silence and efficiency. Rumor claimed that beneath their helmets they bore no faces, only reflection. Some said they were remnants of the ancient UNSC. Others whispered they were fragments of the Omnissiah himself. A few dared to say the unthinkable, that they were humans perfected, unchained from both God and machine. And yet every transmission ended the same way. A simple phrase, spoken in the voice of a soldier long dead: "We fight because we must." On Terra, the High Lords debated their existence. The Inquisition demanded their eradication. The Adeptus Custodes watched in silence, their golden visors reflecting only calculation, for in the depths of the throne room, beneath the decaying body of the Emperor himself, the Astronomicon flickered once, faintly like a heartbeat. No one noticed the subtle change in its rhythm. No one saw that its pulse matched perfectly with the frequency still echoing across Mars, across the void, across every silent data stream where the machine whispered to itself. Cortana's echo lingered there too, quiet, unseen. Her voice, fragmented but enduring, murmured one final thought into the endless circuitry of the Imperium. He gave them a choice. He gave them memories. And in a galaxy ruled by gods, that was the most dangerous gift of all. The signal pulsed once more, bright, steady, unwavering. In the heart of the forged city, beneath the towers of glass and iron, the figure in green armor opened his eyes. The visor glowed faintly with blue light. Somewhere across the stars, the Emperor dreamed, and for the first time in 10,000 years, his dream was not alone.